Welcome to 5-Minute Salute. I'm your host, Chris Budihas, and joining me virtually is Mike Anderson of Interactive Terminal Consultants, Inc. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you?
No, it's awesome, man. Hey, thanks for taking time to tell your story and talk to us about your company. So, who are you? Where do you live? What was your journey in the military? And more importantly, or just as important, what do you do in your post-military career with your company?
So who we are is we're Interactive Terminal Consultants, Inc., ITCI. We are a 25-year-old cybersecurity company focused mostly on business risk. So we're really put the business focus and the cybersecurity as an enabler. I came into this business as a intelligence officer in the United States Navy for about 20 years. The company was actually founded by my father, who was an intelligence person in the United States Army before he decided to start his own business.
So that must make Thanksgiving's interesting with you being in the Navy and him being in the Army.
It does. It makes things lively, especially around the Army-Navy game. That is definitely a focal point of the year. So what did I do after I left the Navy? I was lucky in that the last 10 years of my time in the Navy was as a reservist. So I got to have one foot in both the civilian world and in the military world at the same time. So I transitioned kind of gracefully out as opposed to kind of a shock all of a sudden to the system. In that time, I did a lot of work in big consulting. I was working for Capgemini. I did some work in the defense industrial base, working for a brief period as a defense contractor. And then I decided right in the middle of COVID, talk about auspicious timing, to buy this company from my father and take it in a different direction than he had intended it to go. So he was doing a lot of consulting work, doing communication stuff, and I was doing consulting work in cybersecurity.
That's great. And what's that journey been like? Is it all been success, no issues, or has it been a lot of learning and evolution? I can only imagine between the speed of technology and Moore's Law, COVID, post-COVID, the economy, that you probably had some challenges and probably some opportunities too, I can imagine.
Absolutely, there have been challenges. So the challenge is starting off with just COVID, right? Nobody wanted to do any investing. The economy way slowed down. But I had something good things going for me in that, in a sense, that was also a time for a lot of cyber adversaries to become active. And so for the companies that were left, this was a time they wanted to start investing in their cybersecurity infrastructure and really trying to figure out what their cybersecurity infrastructure needed to look like. How would it support their business? How would it support them as individuals? So the other big thing that kind of kicked things off and moved in the right direction, there's been this thing going on in Ukraine. You maybe have heard of it.
I've heard of it once or twice.
Once or twice, right? So I like to say that Mr. Putin keeps me going. The adversary activity has just ballooned since then. And so there's a lot of companies, especially in the defense industrial base, who are going, how do I stop this? How do I stop the bleeding? How do I keep from losing my position in industry and my position with the DoD? And I help them do that. I help them find a way to counter this renewed and active threat environment.
Yeah. And so for you, it just seems like this field and opportunity is getting bigger and bigger. Does that sound about right?
It is, and it's getting bigger and bigger. The drawback to a field like that is that there is now a lot of new competition.
Yeah.
We welcome that because what I bring to the equation is a lot of risk understanding as well, business risk understanding that a lot of people who haven't been through something like the military, they just don't understand it. They don't really understand the geopolitical environment very well. And so they're very concentrated on just the cybersecurity part. That's not necessarily what business is really looking for, to be fair. They're looking for an answer that promotes their business, and I can help them do that.
No, that's great. And we were talking off camera. I mean, with your Intel experience, be able to, define the risk, see the risk, and explain it so they understand it, and then they can take the proper mitigation, activities is, it's obviously, saving millions, if not, hundreds of millions of dollars, and then in some cases probably preventing some companies from going bankrupt, those that are taking this serious.
Absolutely. For companies that take this very seriously, it's a lifesaver because it prevents adversaries from taking their most critical asset, which is usually their intellectual property or their customer data, or you name it. Some companies just don't understand the risk particularly well, and they just view this as kind of a compliance question. But the truth is that there's always going to be another government compliance. There's always going to be another government regulator. There's always going to be something like that happening. So you spend all of your time as a company just trying to be compliant and not doing what you really need to do as a company, which is make money and support your customers. So trying to move companies away from a compliance-only framework mindset to an actual risk mindset is part of what I do and what differentiates me from my competition.
So Mike, kind of wrapping us up here. So for those folks in uniform right now who are thinking like, hey, I want to run my own business, create my own business, what's one piece of advice you would give to them?
I would say, hey, don't be afraid of reaching out and taking help where you can. At least at first, when you're starting a new business, pride is your enemy. I know that we are instilled in the military with a we can do anything attitude. It's not the same thing when you're starting your own business. You're going to have a lot of people who are going to want to help you. You should accept that help. You should learn as much as you can, and then move from there into whatever creative enterprise it is you're trying to do. But don't be afraid. Don't humble yourself for just a moment and take in as much as you can of, for me, I'll just give you one example. The University of South Florida had a program that was designed for small businesses and was focused on veteran small businesses. They taught me an enormous amount, and I am tremendously grateful to them. You should take my experience and run with it. Find help and go with it.
Yeah, we're seeing the same thing up here in Jacksonville. Obviously, you're down in Tampa, and the same thing is, as I told somebody earlier, with no military experience, so when I got out of the Marines in 2000, there was no transition assistance. Now there's so many opportunity, and we talk about in uniform having, physical and moral courage. Well, this takes a little bit of courage to put yourself out there. And what I found with folks that I reached out to on LinkedIn, that some had military affiliation, some didn't, they were more than willing to get on the phone and have a 10, 15, 30-minute phone call with me to give me free advice on, their thoughts and advice. And I think that's a huge part of having a successful transition is one, having a plan, and then two, being willing to go out there and seek those mentors to help you actualize that and move that forward. So, hey, last question, Mike. So how do folks find your company?
You can go to the internet and go to www.itci.pro, and you'll find me there. Or you can look me up on LinkedIn, and you look up my company on LinkedIn. We have a presence on both.
Absolutely. Well, hey, first of all, thank you for your service to our nation. Second of all, thanks for all your advice and taking time today to tell your story. And we're going to take all your contact information, your LinkedIn address, and then the company's website link, and we'll put that in our show notes, and we'll make sure we post it out to the rest of the world. So again, thanks a lot, Mike, and we appreciate your service to the nation and what you're doing in your post-military career. Hey, folks, if you like what you heard, please share us. Check out Mike and his company on the internet, and then if you like what you heard, share us, and we'll see you at our next segment. Live with gratitude.